Revenge. Conspiracy.
Murder.
Everyone, welcome to today's video where we'll be going into a deep dive on the escape of Alcatraz. Did the escapees make it out alive? Are they still alive today? Well, we are going to find out today in this deep dive. So, let's get into it. Alcatraz, and I'm almost certain every single one of us will have heard at least once in our lifetime. The once ultimate maximum security prison located on a lonely island in the middle of San Francisco Bay. The maximum security prison held 1,576 prisoners during its time in operation and was shut down in 1963 due to high operating costs, but you can still go visit the famous prison today. In the 1930s, Alcatraz was already a forbidden place surrounded by cold, rough waters and sharp rocks. Inside the maximum security prison were strategically placed guard towers, and prisoners had to endure tougher iron bars and a dozen checks daily. Despite these strict conditions, over 36 men tried to escape. However, all were caught or didn't survive the attempt, until 3 particular inmates whose fate still remains a mystery to this day. I have to say, don't you think it's quite crazy that the ultimate maximum security prison, Alcatraz, one of the most famous prisons in the world, had over 36 attempted escapes? Either these prisoners really liked their chances or they were downright crazy. But today we'll be focusing on the 3 mysterious prisoners whose escape still remains a mystery to this day. So, let's get into learning these 3 prisoners and how they managed to escape. Or did they? Our first inmate goes by the name of Frank Morris. Frank arrived at Alcatraz in January 1960 after being convicted for bank robbery, burglary and other crimes, as well as repeated attempts to escape other prisons. Frank clearly liked his luck in escaping. Frank had a difficult upbringing, being orphaned at age 11, where he would go on to spend the rest of his childhood in foster homes. He was convicted of his first criminal offence at 13 and spent most of his early years in jail, serving lunch to prisoners. So clearly Frank has had a really difficult upbringing, which is why we can understand he's gone on to commit crimes and spent most of his time in prison due to the upbringing he's dealt with, and all that trauma that he hasn't dealt with has caused him to be confused and lead a quite criminal life, to be honest. But that's my opinion. Drop your opinions down below. One thing though, what we do learn about Frank is how intelligent he really was. Reportedly, Frank Morris ranked in the top 2% of the general population in intelligence, as measured by IQ testing. This would mean that Morris had an IQ of 133 or higher, so he was clearly the brains of this operation. Our next 2 inmates are a pair of brothers who go by the name of John and Clarence Anglin. They were born into a family of 14 children. Could you imagine having 12 siblings? 14 children, that is crazy. Their mum and dad there must have been something in those waters back near where they lived. It has been reported though that John and Clarence were inseparable when they were younger, and they both became very good swimmers. Speaking of waters, very good swimmers. That's something that we need to note down for further investigation when it comes to the escape of Alcatraz. The brothers began robbing banks in the 1950s and other establishments as a team until January 17th, 1958, where they attempted to rob the Bank of Colombia. This resulted in the pair both receiving 35-year sentences, which they served at Florida State and Atlanta Penitentiary. After repeated attempts to escape the facilities, the pair were transferred to Alcatraz. Finally, we have Alan West. Now I know what you're thinking. You said that only 3 inmates escaped, and that is correct, but we'll go into that later. West was arrested over 20 times throughout his lifetime and also served time at both Atlanta Penitentiary and then Florida State Prison. After an escape attempt from the Florida facility, he was then transferred to Alcatraz in 1957 at the age of 28. 4 men were assigned to adjoining cells and knew each other from previous stints in prison. The men began hatching a plan to escape. Morris, who was known for his intelligence, took the lead in planning, and the 3 men were aided by, you guessed it, Alan West. See, I told you it would make sense later. On June 12, 1962, the routine early morning bed check turned out to be anything but, suspicious. 3 convicts were not in their cells: John, Clarence and Frank. The officers instead found cleverly built dummy heads made of plastiflesh, tone and human hair. This decoy fooled the night guards, and once discovered in the morning, the prison went into lockdown and an intensive search began. Here is a closer look at the dummy heads that were used. On the left we have Clarence Anglin's, in the centre we can see Frank Lee Morris's, and on the right we have John Anglin's. The FBI were notified immediately and asked to help. The office in San Francisco set leads for officers nationwide to check for any records on the missing prisoners and on their previous stints in prison. The FBI also conducted interviews with the relatives of the men and compiled all their identification records. They also asked boat operators to be on the lookout for any debris. But what we want to know is, was any debris found? Well, within 2 days, a packet of letters sealed in rubber and related to the men was recovered. Later on, some paddle-like pieces of wood and bits of rubber in a tube were found in the water. A homemade life vest was also discovered washed up on Cronkite Beach, but extensive searches did not turn up any other items. If the inmates did escape successfully, how did they plan this infamous deception? As the days went by, the FBI, the Coast Guard and prison authorities began to discover more evidence and piece together the ingenious escape plan. The FBI were aided by inmate Alan West, snitch, who didn't make it out of his cell in time and began providing information. The group had begun laying plans the previous December when one of them came across some old saw blades. Using crude tools, the inmates decided to each loosen the air vents at the back of their cells by drilling closely spaced holes around the cover so the entire section of the wall could be removed. Here we have a closer look at the escape vents that the prisoners used. We can see that they have tucked down the wall successfully and drilled holes around the escape vent, but it's still quite a tight fit for the prisoners. Behind the cells was a common unguarded utility corridor. They made their way down this corridor and climbed to the roof of their cell block inside the building. Here they set up a secret workshop. The men used a variety of tools to hide and build what they needed to escape. More than 50 raincoats that they stole or gathered were turned into makeshift life preservers and a 6 by 14 foot rubber raft. This raft was carefully stitched together and vulcanized by the hot steaming pipes that were in the prison. The men also built wooden paddles and converted a musical instrument into a tool to inflate the raft. At the same time as building all these tools they needed to escape, the men had to find a way out of the building. The ceiling was a good 30 foot high, but using a network of pipes, they climbed up and eventually pried open the ventilator at the top of the shaft. They kept it in place temporarily by fashioning a fake ball out of soap. With the plan in place, it was time for the men to escape. On the evening of June 11th, they were ready to go. The three men got into the corridor, gathered their gear, and climbed up and out through the ventilator. From here, they were now on top of the prison roof, where they shimmied down the bakery smokestack at the rear of the cell house. Finally, they climbed over the fence and snuck to the northeast shore of the island and launched their raft. The three men did all this while still remaining undetected. But what happened next? Well, till this day, that still remains a mystery. Plenty of people have their own theories, and the FBI believe that the three never made it to the shore. For the 17 years the FBI worked on the case, no credible evidence emerged to suggest the men were still alive either in the US or overseas. The FBI officially closed the case in December 1979 and turned over the responsibility to the US Marshals Service, which continues to investigate in the unlikely event that the trio is still alive. So, did the trio survive the treacherous 1.5-mile journey? Well, after observing the evidence given, I would like to believe that the famous trio successfully evaded the authorities and managed to complete the biggest escape act America has ever seen. We have to give them the plaudits for their amazing and ingenious plan, the decoy dummies, the way they escaped without remaining detected. It is a masterpiece. But did they make it across the shore, those treacherous rocks? It would have been a hard journey, but I would like to believe that they did, just because of how amazing this case really is. The way they managed to evade all authorities, I'm hoping that they're off somewhere, living their own life, that they managed to get away with the plan, because that is the amazing ending that we all want to hear. There has been many, many films made about this amazing escape, the most famous escape, the best prison escape of all time. There's also been a lot of TV series documenting the escape. Mythbusters did an episode seeing whether the escape was actually plausible. This Mythbusters episode is actually really good. It's a very interesting watch. So I would recommend, if you have enjoyed this video and would like to see whether the escape could actually have happened, make sure you do go watch this video. It's free on YouTube. All you have to do is search Mythbusters Escape from Alcatraz and it will come up. It's as easy as that. So that has been my deep dive into the Alcatraz escape. If Frank Morris is watching this, you genius man, make sure you like and subscribe. And guys, please do drop in the comments down below any other deep dives you want me to do. I'm looking to do a Jack the Ripper deep dive because I think that is a very interesting case and will be an honour to solve as if we're the detectives here. But to deep dive into, The lights just changed because my computer's turned off. But I hope you did enjoy this Alcatraz escape video. Please do subscribe if you're new around here. It's down there. Like the video and comment down below. And hopefully none of us get murdered in the next week until the next video's out. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.